So this is a Harbor Freight Pittsburgh Pro 1/4 inch ratchet. It's a fine tooth ratchet. This is a 2018 model. I got it this summer. It's made of CRV and they say it has a sealed head. So lots of different things going on. It is an $18 1/4 inch ratchet from Harbor Freight. That's probably the most expensive thing in the store. So I guess we're going to tear it apart and we're going to look at it. I imagine a lot of people have this ratchet, or they've thought about grabbing one, or they want to, for whatever reason. I think this is probably a ratchet that a lot of people walk by in the store. And let's tear it apart and look at it. Just right off the bat, I just wiped this ratchet off not 5 minutes ago. And they say it has a sealed head, and you can clearly see there's oil leaking out of around the drive gear. So the entire point of a sealed head, in my mind, would be that you have a seal on it so it doesn't leak fluid everywhere and leak your grease out and dry up. Not necessarily reality here with the sealed head Pittsburgh Pro ratchet. It's clearly leaking fluid out, and it's not going to hold fluid inside. So something to be aware of, and the marketing materials don't necessarily reflect the reality of the situation. So the outside torque screws on this are T9, and that is quite small. You're going to have to find a very fine tooth Torx bit set to get this apart. And then the center one here is even smaller. That's not a T9, that's probably like a T5 or a T7. We're going to have to find out in a second, but these outside ones are T9. And taking this apart does require removal of all 3 screws. It doesn't let the center one slide through. And the center bolt is a T6, very small. Okay, this is the inside of this ratchet. The drive gear here, being that they say this is a sealed head, there's nothing on this that would constitute a rubber gasket or seal. There is this piece of metal that is around the drive gear, which is a very, very thin piece of like stainless steel that is stamped into an O-ring. That does not constitute a sealed head. You can see here, this is just an unbelievably thin piece of stamped steel, and I believe it's probably stainless steel, but maybe not. And I guess that is what they're putting in their marketing materials, constituting a sealed head, because there's nothing else in there that would seal that. That just presses up against here. You can see this is wearing into it, so it's a harder material than this. So I'm guessing that's probably stainless or something. And that's it. That's the only seal on this, because everything else, there's no gaskets around the lip on this. It just press fit, like everything else. So however that works. But you see this drive gear has teeth on it. They're very, very fine teeth. That is a 72 tooth 1/4 inch ratchet, and very, very fine ground teeth. Not much to those at all. The depth on those teeth is very, very shallow. There's hardly anything. And then you look, these are the 2 directional grabbing dealios here, the engagement cogs, and they really have shallow teeth on them. There's hardly anything there at all. This is a T6 bit, and you can see this T6 almost has the exact same depth on it as those cog teeth, and that's just, boy, you would not want to put a lot of torque on this ratchet. I don't believe this would hold very much at all, but who knows, I don't know, you'd have to test it. But you see the way this works. There's the cam selector here, and that goes left and right. You can see it's offset. Well, maybe you can't in the video, but it's offset, so you turn it left and right, and one of these cogs will sit proud and engage the teeth on the drive gear. The teeth are very small, but that's what they are. I will say that again, they're very small. And this has springs on it. This is not much different from a proto ratchet. The protos have a single cog that comes up, and it sits into the teeth on the drive gear. But the drive gear has, this is a 72 tooth ratchet. A drive gear on a proto ratchet, it's like 32 teeth. So, one cog tooth will sit into a tooth. You have to watch a video of one, but the 72 tooth ratchet, the cog has 4 or 5 teeth on it, and that's what your engagement is. maybe I can pop this in there and you can see it. But you can see here the way this works. Yeah, okay, so you turn it clockwise in this orientation, and you can see it retrieve in that direction. Yeah, you can see it bounce back just a tiny little bit. And then when you turn this counterclockwise, it engages on the left cog, and that's your engagement. You can see the right directional is retrieved and does not contact. Very narrow in there. If you had a piece of sand inside there, it would probably grab. And then you can see the two springs that press against the body. Same thing as a proto ratchet, but these cogs are different designs. So, and here you can see the teeth on these cogs. Up close, they don't look as terrible. And you can see there's a number of teeth there. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I can't count so good, but they go in there, and those right against the teeth on the drive gear. And you can see the drive gear here. The issue I have, the teeth are not very deep. That's very, very shallow teeth on there. But, you know, you'd have to do a test, and, you know, depending on what your expectations are, you'd have to see how well that holds. And depending on what kind of lubricant you're using and everything else in this ratchet, that will affect your grab. But overall, it, you know, not a whole lot different from a proto ratchet, just adapted into a fine-tooth gear set. And this is how they sit in there without the springs. You see they just rotate back and forth. So when the cam will push one of those to the side and press it up against the spring, the other one will be let free to ride against the drive gear. And the spring will push this out, and the drive gear will contact this cog, and it will engage when it meets that face. The springs inside of this, if you're trying to put these back together and you don't know, the large base always goes against the body, and the smaller tip goes against the cog. So they sit in like this. This is not going to happen. So that is the Harbor Freight 1/4-inch ratchet. Just a short video taking it apart and seeing the internals of it. It works. I mean, I've used it this summer very little, but it does function as a ratchet. There are definitely worse ratchets. It's nice that it's a fine-tooth ratchet. It makes it a little bit easier to work with small stuff. But other than that, that's pretty much it for this video. There's nothing really else to talk about with it, so we'll work on some other ratchets in the future. Thanks, bye.